The alarms blared, piercing the cold, metallic air of the alien facility. Red lights flashed, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Somewhere deep inside, a group of alien girls huddled together, their eyes wide with fear. They had been prisoners for so long that hope was a distant memory. But tonight, something was different. The sound of heavy boots echoed through the hallway. A human soldier, clad in battered armor, moved swiftly and silently. His face was hidden behind a helmet, but his determination was clear in every step. He had one goal: to free the girls and give them a chance at freedom. The soldier reached a large, sealed door. He placed a small device on the control panel, and with a soft beep, the door slid open. Inside, the girls gasped. They had never seen a human before. To them, he was a strange, almost mythical figure. "Stay close to me," the soldier said, his voice calm but firm. "We don't have much time." The girls hesitated. They had been betrayed before, and trust didn't come easily. But one of them, a young alien with shimmering blue skin, stepped forward. "We'll follow you," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. The soldier nodded. "Good. Let's move." As they made their way through the facility, the soldiers' skills were put to the test. Alien guards patrolled the halls, armed with advanced weapons. The soldier moved like a shadow, taking down guards with precision and speed. The girls watched in awe, their fear slowly giving way to hope. But the escape wasn't easy. The facility was a maze of corridors and traps. At one point, they reached a massive chasm, with only a narrow bridge connecting the two sides. The soldier led the way, but halfway across, the bridge began to collapse. "Run," he shouted, pushing the girls ahead of him. They barely made it to the other side before the bridge fell into the darkness below. The soldier looked back, his heart pounding. They were running out of time. The overlords would soon realize what was happening, and when they did, there would be no escape. As they reached the final door, the soldier's device failed. The door remained sealed. Behind them, the sound of approaching guards grew louder. The girls looked at the soldier, their eyes filled with fear. "What do we do now?" the blue-skinned girl asked. The soldier clenched his fists. "We fight." The soldier stood in front of the sealed door, his mind racing. The sound of approaching guards grew louder, and the alien girls huddled behind him, their fear palpable. He knew they were counting on him, but the weight of his past pressed heavily on his shoulders. Years ago, he had been a different man. He had a family, a wife and a young daughter. They lived a simple life on a small colony planet, far from the conflicts of the galaxy. But one day, everything changed. Alien raiders attacked the colony. They came without warning, their ships darkening the sky. The soldier, then just a civilian, fought to protect his family, but it wasn't enough. His wife and daughter were taken, along with many others. He never saw them again. The memory of that day haunted him. He had joined the military, not out of a sense of duty, but out of a desire for revenge. He trained harder than anyone else, pushing himself to the limit. But as the years passed, he realized that revenge wouldn't bring his family back. Instead, he found a new purpose: to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Now, standing in front of the sealed door, he thought of his daughter. The blue-skinned alien girl reminded him of her, not in appearance, but in spirit. She had the same determination, the same will to survive. He couldn't let her down. "Stay behind me," the soldier said, his voice steady. He raised his weapon and fired at the door's control panel. Sparks flew, and the door slid open just enough for them to squeeze through. On the other side, they found themselves in a large hangar. Alien ships were lined up in rows, their sleek designs glowing under the dim lights. The soldier knew they had to act fast. "We need to find a ship," he said, scanning the area. The girls followed him, their eyes wide with wonder. They had never been outside the facility before, and the sight of the ships filled them with a mix of fear and excitement. As they moved through the hangar, the soldier noticed something strange. One of the ships had a human design. It was old and battered, but it was familiar. He approached it cautiously, his heart pounding. The ship's hatch opened with a hiss, and a voice called out from inside. "I was wondering when you'd show up." The soldier froze. He recognized that voice. It belonged to an old friend, someone he hadn't seen in years. "What are you doing here?" the soldier asked, his voice filled with disbelief. The man inside the ship grinned. "Saving your hide, apparently. Now get in. We don't have much time." The soldier hesitated. He didn't trust easily, especially not after everything he had been through. But the sound of approaching guards left him with no choice. "Get in," he said to the girls. They climbed into the ship, their eyes wide with curiosity. As the ship's engines roared to life, the soldier looked back at the facility. He knew this wasn't over. The alien overlords would come after them, and they would stop at nothing to get the girls back. But for now, they were safe. And that was enough. The ship soared through the dark void of space, leaving the alien facility far behind. Inside, the soldier sat in the cockpit, his hands gripping the controls. His old friend, a rugged man with a scar running down his cheek, leaned back in the co-pilot's seat, watching him with a knowing smile. "You haven't changed a bit," the man said. "Still charging into danger without a plan." The soldier didn't respond. His mind was focused on the task at hand. They were safe for now, but he knew the alien overlords wouldn't let them go so easily. In the back of the ship, the alien girls sat together, their eyes wide with wonder. They had never seen the stars before, and the vastness of space filled them with both awe and fear. The blue-skinned girl, who had become their unofficial leader, approached the soldier. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice trembling. The soldier turned to her, his expression softening. "We find a safe place for you," he said. "Somewhere the overlords can't reach you." The girl nodded, but her eyes were filled with doubt. "What if they find us?" "They won't," the soldier said, though he wasn't entirely sure himself. His old friend chuckled. "You always were terrible at lying." The soldier shot him a glare but didn't argue. Instead, he turned his attention to the ship's navigation system. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. "There's a hidden outpost on the edge of the galaxy," the old friend said, pointing to a star on the map. "It's run by a group of rebels. They might be willing to help us." The soldier considered this. He had heard of the rebels before, freedom fighters who opposed the alien overlords. They were their best chance. "Set a course for the outpost," the soldier said. As the ship changed direction, the soldier turned to the girls. "We're going to a safe place," he said. "But the journey won't be easy. You'll need to trust me." The girls nodded, though their fear was still evident. The blue-skinned girl stepped forward. "We trust you," she said. "But what about you? Why are you doing this?" The soldier hesitated. He had asked himself the same question many times. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said finally. The girl studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you," she said softly. As the ship continued its journey, the tension inside grew. The soldier knew they were being hunted, and it was only a matter of time before the overlords caught up to them. Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. The old friend cursed under his breath. "We've got company," he said, pointing to the radar. A group of alien ships was closing in fast. The soldier clenched his fists. They were outnumbered and outgunned. "What's the plan?" the old friend asked. The soldier thought for a moment, then turned to the girls. "Stay here," he said. "No matter what happens, don't leave the ship. He then turned to his old friend. "We'll lead them away. Give the girls a chance to escape." The old friend nodded, a grim smile on his face. Just like old times. The two men prepared for battle, their movements quick and precise. The alien ships were almost within range, their weapons glowing ominously. As the first shots were fired, the soldier gripped the controls tightly. This was it. The moment that would decide their fate. The alien ships closed in, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. The soldier and his old friend worked together, maneuvering their ship through a barrage of laser fire. The girls huddled in the back, their eyes wide with fear as the ship shook violently. "We can't keep this up forever," the old friend shouted, his hands gripping the controls. The soldier knew he was right. They were outnumbered, and their ship wasn't built for a prolonged fight. He glanced at the radar, searching for an escape route. "There's a nearby asteroid field," the soldier said. "If we can lose them in there, we might have a chance." The old friend nodded, and the ship veered sharply toward the asteroid field. The alien ships followed, their pilots relentless. As they entered the field, the soldier's heart pounded. The asteroids were massive, their jagged surfaces glinting in the starlight. One wrong move, and they'd be crushed. "Hold on," the soldier shouted as he navigated the ship through the narrow gaps. The alien ships struggled to keep up. Some of them collided with the asteroids, exploding in bright flashes of light. But a few managed to stay on their tail, their weapons still firing. The soldier's old friend cursed under his breath. "We're not going to make it." Just then, the blue-skinned girl appeared in the cockpit. "Let me help," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. The soldier hesitated. "This isn't your fight." "It is now," she replied. "I know how their ships work. I can disable their weapons." The soldier exchanged a glance with his old friend, then nodded. "Do it." The girl moved to the ship's control panel, her fingers flying over the buttons. Within moments, one of the alien ship's weapon systems shut down. "It's working," the old friend exclaimed. But their relief was short-lived. Another alien ship appeared, larger and more heavily armed than the others. It fired a powerful blast, hitting their ship's engine. The ship lurched violently, and alarms blared. "We're losing power," the old friend shouted. The soldier clenched his fists. They were running out of options. "There's one more thing I can do," the blue-skinned girl said, her voice trembling. "But it's dangerous." "What is it?" the soldier asked. "I can overload their systems," she explained. "But I'll need to get closer." The soldier shook his head. "No. It's too risky." "It's the only way," she insisted. "You've done so much for us. Let me do this." The soldier looked into her eyes and saw the same determination he had seen in his daughter. He nodded reluctantly. "Be careful." The girl moved to the ship's airlock, her hands shaking as she put on a spacesuit. The soldier watched her, his heart heavy with guilt. As the airlock opened, the girl stepped out into the void of space. She floated toward the alien ship, her movements slow but deliberate. The soldier and his old friend watched in tense silence. "She's brave," the old friend said. "Too brave," the soldier replied, his voice filled with worry. Suddenly, the alien ship's systems began to spark and flicker. The girl had done it. But as she turned to make her way back, the alien ship fired a final, desperate shot. The blast hit her directly, and she was thrown into the darkness. "No," the soldier shouted, his voice filled with anguish. The old friend grabbed his arm. "We have to go. Now." The soldier hesitated, his eyes fixed on the spot where the girl had disappeared. But he knew there was no time to mourn. He returned to the controls and steered the ship away from the asteroid field. As they left the danger behind, the soldier felt a deep sense of loss. The girl had sacrificed herself to save them, and he would never forget her bravery. The ship limped through space, its engines sputtering and its hull scarred from the battle. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy with grief. The soldier sat in the cockpit, his hands resting on the controls, but his mind was far away. He couldn't stop thinking about the blue-skinned girl and her sacrifice. The old friend broke the silence. "We need to find a place to land and repair the ship. We're not going to make it much farther like this." The soldier nodded but didn't respond. His thoughts were consumed by guilt. He had promised to protect the girls, and he had failed. One of the alien girls approached him, her eyes filled with tears. "She was brave," she said softly. "She saved us." The soldier looked at her, his heart aching. "She shouldn't have had to," he replied. The girl placed a hand on his arm. "You've done so much for us. Don't blame yourself." Her words brought a small measure of comfort, but the soldier knew he couldn't dwell on the past. They still had a long way to go. The old friend pointed to a nearby planet on the navigation screen. "There's a small moon orbiting that planet. It's uninhabited, but it has the resources we need to repair the ship." The soldier agreed, and they set a course for the moon. As they approached, they saw that it was a barren, rocky place, with no signs of life. But it was safe, and that was all that mattered. They landed the ship in a shallow crater, shielding it from view. The old friend immediately began working on the repairs, while the soldier and the girls explored their surroundings. As they walked across the moon's surface, the soldier noticed something strange. There was a faint signal coming from a nearby cave. He followed it, his curiosity piqued. Inside the cave, he found a hidden entrance, cleverly concealed by rocks. He pushed them aside and discovered a small, underground bunker. "What is this place?" one of the girls asked, her voice filled with wonder. The soldier stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room. It was filled with supplies, food, water, and weapons. There was also a communication device, still active. "This is a rebel outpost," the soldier said, his voice filled with relief. "We're not alone." He activated the communication device, and a voice crackled through the speakers. "This is Sanctuary Outpost. Identify yourself." The soldier hesitated, then responded. "This is a friend. We need help." There was a pause, and then the voice replied. "Stand by. We're sending a team to your location." The soldier turned to the girls, a small smile on his face. "We're going to be okay." As they waited for the rebel team to arrive, the soldier and the old friend worked together to secure the area. The girls helped as well, their spirits lifted by the promise of safety. When the rebel team finally arrived, they were a diverse group of fighters from different species. Their leader, a tall, imposing figure with scars covering his face, approached the soldier. "You've been through a lot," the leader said, his voice gruff but kind. "You're safe now." The soldier nodded, but his mind was already racing ahead. He knew the alien overlords wouldn't stop until they found the girls. This sanctuary was only a temporary solution. As the rebels helped them settle in, the soldier pulled the old friend aside. "We can't stay here forever," he said. "We need a plan." The old friend nodded. "I know. But for now, let's focus on getting back on our feet. We'll figure out the rest later." The soldier agreed, but he couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was far from over. The hidden sanctuary was a hive of activity. Rebel fighters moved quickly, preparing weapons and fortifying the bunker. The soldier stood at the center of it all, his mind focused on the task ahead. The alien overlords had tracked them to the moon, and their forces were closing in. The rebel leader approached the soldier, his expression grim. "We've detected a large fleet heading this way. They'll be here within hours." The soldier nodded. "We'll be ready." The old friend joined them, his arms crossed. We're outnumbered and outgunned. What's the plan? The soldier looked around at the rebels and the alien girls. They were all counting on him. He couldn't let them down. We'll use the terrain to our advantage, he said. The caves and craters can provide cover. We'll set up ambush points and hit them where they're weakest. The rebel leader agreed. It's risky, but it's our best chance. As the rebels began to prepare, the soldier turned to the alien girls. They had been through so much, and now they were facing another battle. You don't have to fight, he said. You can stay here, where it's safe. The girls exchanged glances, then the one who had spoken earlier stepped forward. We want to help, she said. This is our fight too. The soldier hesitated, but he saw the determination in their eyes. He nodded. All right. But stay close to me. As the hours passed, the tension grew. The rebels took their positions, hiding in the caves and behind rocks. The soldier stood at the front, his weapon in hand. He thought about the blue-skinned girl and her sacrifice. He wouldn't let it be in vain. Finally, the alien fleet arrived. Their ships descended onto the moon's surface, and soldiers poured out, heavily armed and ready for battle. The soldier took a deep breath. Wait for my signal, he whispered. The alien forces advanced, their movements slow and deliberate. They didn't know what was waiting for them. When the first group of soldiers entered the ambush zone, the soldier raised his hand. Now! The rebels opened fire, catching the alien soldiers off guard. The battle was fierce, with laser blasts lighting up the dark landscape. The soldier fought with everything he had, his movements precise and deadly. The alien girls stayed close to him, using their knowledge of the Overlord's tactics to outmaneuver the enemy. They were brave and resourceful, and the soldier felt a surge of pride as he watched them fight. But the alien forces were relentless. Despite their losses, they kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. The old friend appeared at the soldier's side, his face covered in dirt and sweat. We can't hold them off much longer, he shouted. The soldier knew he was right. They needed a new plan, and fast. He turned to the rebel leader. Is there anything we can use to turn the tide? The leader hesitated, then nodded. There's an old weapon in the bunker. It's powerful, but dangerous. We use it, it could destroy the entire moon. The soldier's heart sank. Is there no other way? The leader shook his head. It's our only chance. The soldier looked at the alien girls, then at the rebels. They were all willing to fight, but he couldn't ask them to sacrifice everything. We'll use it as a last resort, he said. For now, we keep fighting. The battle raged on, the moon's surface littered with the wreckage of ships and the bodies of fallen soldiers. The soldier fought with everything he had, his determination unwavering. But as the alien forces closed in, he knew the time had come to make a choice. The battle had reached its peak. The moon's surface was a chaotic battlefield, with laser blasts lighting up the darkness and the cries of the wounded echoing through the air. The soldier fought desperately, his body aching and his mind focused on one thing: survival. The alien forces were overwhelming. Despite the rebels' best efforts, they were being pushed back. The soldier knew they couldn't hold out much longer. The old friend appeared at his side, blood dripping from a wound on his arm. We're running out of time, he shouted over the noise. We need to use the weapon. The soldier hesitated. Using the weapon meant destroying the moon, and everyone on it. But what choice did they have? If they didn't act now, the alien overlords would win, and the girls would be captured again. He turned to the rebel leader, who was fighting nearby. Activate the weapon, he said, his voice heavy with regret. The leader nodded and rushed back to the bunker. The soldier and the old friend covered him, fighting off the alien soldiers as best they could. As the weapon powered up, the ground began to shake. The soldier felt a sense of dread wash over him. He looked at the alien girls, who were fighting bravely beside him. They had already lost so much. He couldn't let them lose their lives too. "We need to get out of here," he shouted. The old friend shook his head. "There's no time. The weapon will detonate in minutes." The soldier's mind raced. He couldn't leave the girls behind. He turned to them. "Follow me." He led them to a small, hidden cave near the edge of the battlefield. It was a tight fit, but it would have to do. "Stay here," he said. "No matter what happens, don't come out." The girls nodded, their eyes filled with fear. The soldier gave them one last look, then turned and ran back to the battlefield. The old friend was waiting for him. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm not leaving them," the soldier replied. The old friend sighed but didn't argue. Together, they fought their way back to the bunker, where the rebel leader was preparing the weapon. "We need to buy more time," the soldier shouted. The leader nodded. "I'll stay here and make sure the weapon detonates. You two get out of here." The soldier hesitated. "We're not leaving you." The leader smiled grimly. "It's been an honor fighting with you. Now go." The soldier and the old friend exchanged a glance, then turned and ran. They had only minutes to escape before the weapon detonated. As they reached the edge of the battlefield, the ground shook violently. The weapon had been activated. "Run!" the soldier shouted. They sprinted across the moon's surface, the ground cracking beneath their feet. The alien forces, realizing what was happening, began to retreat, but it was too late. With a blinding flash of light, the weapon detonated. The explosion was massive, engulfing the moon in a fiery blaze. The soldier and the old friend were thrown to the ground, the force of the blast knocking the air out of their lungs. When the dust settled, the moon was gone, reduced to rubble. The alien fleet had been destroyed, but so had the sanctuary. The soldier stood up, his body battered and bruised. He looked around, his heart heavy with loss. The old friend appeared beside him, his face covered in soot. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. The soldier nodded, but his thoughts were with the rebel leader and the others who had sacrificed themselves. As they made their way back to the cave, the soldier felt a glimmer of hope. The alien girls were safe, and the Overlord's forces had been dealt a crippling blow. But the fight wasn't over. Not yet. The soldier stood amidst the rubble of the moon, his body aching and his mind heavy with the weight of all they had lost. The alien girls emerged from the cave, their eyes wide with shock at the devastation around them. The old friend joined them, his face grim but determined. "We did it," one of the girls said softly, her voice trembling. "The Overlord's fleet is gone." The soldier nodded, but his thoughts were already turning to the next step. The alien overlords were still out there, and their defeat on the moon was only a temporary setback. If they didn't act now, the overlords would regroup and strike again. "We need to finish this," the soldier said, his voice firm. "Once and for all." The old friend agreed. "But how? We don't even know where their main base is." The soldier turned to the girls. "Do you know anything that could help us?" The girls exchanged glances, then one of them stepped forward. "I remember hearing them talk about a central hub," she said. "A place where they control everything. It's called the Nexus." The soldier's eyes narrowed. "Do you know where it is?" The girl hesitated, then nodded. "I think so. But it's heavily guarded." "It doesn't matter," the soldier said. "We'll find a way." With the girl's help, they located the coordinates of the Nexus. It was a massive space station, hidden deep within enemy territory. The soldier knew it would be a suicide mission, but he also knew they had no other choice. The old friend managed to repair a small, fast ship from the wreckage of the moon. It wasn't much, but it would get them to the Nexus. As they prepared to leave, the soldier turned to the girls. "You don't have to come with us," he said. "This is going to be dangerous." The girls shook their heads. "We're not leaving you," one of them said. "This is our fight too." The soldier smiled, a rare moment of warmth breaking through his hardened exterior. "All right. Let's finish this." The journey to the Nexus was tense. They avoided enemy patrols and navigated through treacherous asteroid fields, their hearts pounding with every close call. When they finally reached the space station, it was even more imposing than they had imagined. The station was a sprawling fortress, bristling with weapons and surrounded by a fleet of ships. The soldier knew they couldn't fight their way in. They would need a different approach. "We'll use their own systems against them," the soldier said. "If we can disable their defenses from the inside, we might stand a chance." The old friend nodded. "I'll create a diversion. You and the girls get inside." The soldier hesitated. "Are you sure?" The old friend grinned. "Just don't take all the glory." As the old friend's ship drew the attention of the enemy fleet, the soldier and the girls slipped through the station's defenses. They made their way to the control room, their movements quick and silent. Inside, they found the alien overlords, tall, imposing figures with cold, calculating eyes. The soldier felt a surge of anger, but he forced himself to stay focused. "Disable the defenses," he whispered to the girls. As the girls worked on the control panel, the overlords noticed them. One of them stepped forward, his voice dripping with disdain. "You think you can defeat us? You are nothing but insects." The soldier raised his weapon. "We'll see about that." A fierce battle erupted. The soldier fought with everything he had, his movements fueled by rage and determination. The girls worked quickly, their fingers flying over the controls. Finally, the station's defenses were disabled. The old friend's ship, along with a group of rebel fighters who had joined the fight, began to attack the station. The overlords realized they were losing. One of them tried to flee, but the soldier blocked his path. "It's over," the soldier said, his voice cold. The overlord sneered. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." The soldier didn't respond. He simply pulled the trigger, ending the overlord's reign of terror. As the station began to collapse around them, the soldier and the girls made their way back to the ship. The old friend was waiting for them, his face filled with relief. "We did it," he said. The soldier nodded, but his thoughts were already turning to the future. The overlords were defeated, but there was still much work to be done. The ship drifted through the quiet expanse of space, its engines humming softly. Inside, the atmosphere was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. The soldier sat in the cockpit, his hands resting on the controls, but his mind was far away. The alien girls were in the back, their faces filled with a mix of relief and exhaustion. They had been through so much, and now, for the first time in what felt like forever, they were safe. The old friend entered the cockpit, a cup of something warm in his hands. "You should get some rest," he said, handing the cup to the soldier. The soldier took it with a nod of thanks. "I will. But first, we need to figure out where we're going." The old friend shrugged. "Anywhere but here sounds good to me." The soldier smiled faintly. He knew they couldn't just drift forever. They needed a plan, a place to call home. One of the alien girls approached, her eyes filled with curiosity. "What happens now?" she asked. The soldier looked at her, his expression softening. "Now, we start over," he said. "We find a place where you can live in peace, away from the overlords and their cruelty." The girl nodded, but her eyes were filled with doubt. "What if they come back?" "They won't," the soldier said firmly. "We've destroyed their base and their fleet. It will take them years to recover, if they ever do." The girl seemed to relax a little, but the soldier knew it would take time for her, and the others, to fully believe that they were safe. As the ship continued its journey, the soldier thought about everything they had been through. The battles, the losses, the sacrifices. It had been a long and difficult road, but they had made it. The old friend broke the silence. "You know, you've changed." The soldier raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "When I first met you, you were all about revenge," the old friend said. "But now, you're fighting for something bigger. For them." He gestured to the girls. The soldier nodded. "I guess I have." The old friend smiled. "It's a good change." As the days passed, the group began to heal. The girls started to open up, sharing stories of their lives before they were captured. The soldier listened, his heart aching for all they had lost but also filled with hope for their future. Finally, they found a small, peaceful planet on the edge of the galaxy. It was lush and green, with no signs of civilization. "This could be home," the soldier said as they landed. The girls stepped out of the ship, their eyes wide with wonder. They had never seen anything so beautiful. As they explored the planet, the soldier felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. This was a new beginning, not just for the girls, but for him as well. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, the soldier sat with the girls around a campfire. They talked and laughed, their bond stronger than ever. One of the girls turned to him. "Thank you," she said. "For everything." The soldier smiled. "You don't have to thank me. I'm just glad you're safe." The girl shook her head. "You gave us hope. That's more than anyone else ever did." The soldier felt a lump in his throat. He had spent so long fighting, so long carrying the weight of his past. But now, he realized, he had found a new purpose. As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled above, the soldier knew that their journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, and the scars of the past would never fully heal. But for the first time in a long time, he felt hopeful. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. And now, they had a chance to build something new, a future filled with light.